Well, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it's time for another edition of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reid, Bluff Sterini in the home game. And I really got to start off by thanking our sponsors, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and of course, website AMP. Um, I also got to thank our other Wrecking Crew members who get to join me here every week talking about poker in the forums edition of the Rec Poker Podcast. So, folks, why don't you just introduce yourselves to Rec Poker Nation here?
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 on the Poker Stars home game.
And I'm John Somsky. I'm Poker Geek MN everywhere.
I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Radman50 just about everywhere.
And we've also got Woody Adams in the house and John Crowell, as I'm very excited to have. And in a new step here in the forums edition of the podcast, we're actually bringing back a guest from the chats edition. We were chatting with Tommy Angelo a few weeks ago about his life in poker and what he's working on now. And we were having so much fun. He was talking about this new style he's taking to poker. He had some hands he wanted to discuss, and we put the hook out there, and he bit and said he was going to come back and talk about these hands on the forums edition. So, Tommy, thank you so much for coming back on the show, man.
My pleasure. Love talking poker.
Well, you've been establishing yourself in the poker world for a long time, and you've kind of become synonymous with mum poker and playing real tight out of position, so you avoid these kind of painful poker circumstances. But I don't want to say you've turned over a new leaf, but you're trying some different things. What's going on with that? Talk to me about that a little.
Well, actually, what happened is I turned over an old leaf. That's exactly the best way to put it. And
yes.
So what happened was, it's hard to summarize someone playing style, especially since things change constantly and everything. But the very beginning of No Limit, I started playing No Limit regularly in public rooms in 1997 when I moved to California, because they already had that going here, like 13 years ahead of everybody else, or whatever number of years. And back then there was only one book worth anything. This is even before Harrington's books or anything, right? So at that time I had read the No Limit section of this book so many times. This is my second copy. My first one literally just fell apart, but I wasn't hardly ever playing it, right? During the 90s.
Right.
Okay. This book came out in the 80s. And when I first started playing, I was doing this stuff Doyle said. And like, I just want to give you some examples here. Well, reading from the scripture.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like me, all the top players know you have to be extremely aggressive to be a consistent winner. You have to bet all the time. If I find somebody I can keep betting at and he keeps saying, take it, Doyle, well, I'm going to keep pounding on him. I'm not going to let up. And that poor guy never will win a pot from me. He's going to have the nuts to call me. Okay. I lived and breathed by this during my first years of playing No Limit. And I was also a limit player, and we played super fast. We didn't think, we just played, right? And so when I was playing in the big game at Lucky Chances, which that's what we called it, was 1,000 minimum buy-in, and the blinds were effectively 20-40, okay, with the kills and all this stuff. That was a huge game for my bankroll at the time. I would buy in for 1,000, play super nitty, just hope to get lucky, basically. Did not play the style at all. But even during those years, they had a 2-5 game that played many nights at a place called Pacific News in San Mateo. Started at 7 o'clock, one table casino. And then in that game, I was playing this style, right, all the way back to 2000 and the early years. Okay. So then gradually over time, starting around 2008, I started developing a more consistently, because I wanted to end all preflop leaking ever in my own personal world. I started making tighter rules for myself, especially out of position. And I was playing more of a fit and fold game out of position, but still playing aggressively in position. Once I'm into the flop, if I'm in last position, as I've said in a tweet, I have larceny in my heart. Okay? I didn't always have larceny in my heart when I was, seeing the flop from the blinds with pocket twos in a 5-way pot, for example, right? Now I do. Okay. So just a couple other quotes here. This came a couple paragraphs before that. The very best players I know are extremely aggressive players, and that's what makes them the great players they are. The more aggressive they are, the better they are. It's that simple. And I firmly believe that's what accounts for the difference between a very good player and a truly top player. It's the dividing line, that's for sure. So I've had clients, pro clients, say to me, yeah, you got this style, it works for you, it's winning great and everything, but you could make more. I mean, I've been coached by pros who have said, you could make more money.
Yeah.
If you would adapt some other things. Let me finish my little readings from this so I can put it away.
That arm's got to be
This okay?
tired. That's a big one. Oh yeah.
Are we good on this?
Oh, we're loving this. Words like reading from the scripture.
Yeah, right. This is from early. It's amazing how good this still is. I haven't read it in so long, but I was just skimming it. It's phenomenal. So this is a paragraph he bolded. Right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
It comes to a point where you have to take a chance. If you want to be a winner, a big winner, and no limit hold'em, you can't play a solid, safe game. You must get in there and gamble. So I don't believe that that's absolutely true. It really depends on how bad they play. And I've been playing with enough bad players often enough or tilty enough that I could play a style where I was essentially waiting for the money to come to me. But I was still stealing enough in spots, but I was stealing in spots where I was winning the pots like 90% of the time.
Right.
Betting like 70% of the pot in bluff situations that are almost guaranteed to succeed. I was passing up on the zillions of other ones where I could bet half pot and it's going to win half the time, which is plenty profitable as that works out, right? So what happened was, he says, I'm reaching out, picking up small pots all the time. I'm always betting at those pots, hammering in them. And then one more over here. The accumulation of all those small pots is a big part of my winning formula. So that's all stuff Doyle said. So what happened was I got into Ed Miller's book what happened was they started playing 5-10 at Oaks right down the street from me instead of 2-5. So I started playing 2 or 3 days a week. I don't have any writing projects going. My results have been fantastic, so that got me going. Then right along that same time, I read the first 50 pages of Ed Miller's book, Poker's 1%. And what he said in there about frequencies, this was one of these things that was like, all I needed to do was just like read it one time. And it immediately fit into all of my life experience and everything I already knew. And it gave me the theoretical foundation for what Doyle does and what I was already doing back then. Okay. So now it's to the point where the reason I'm seeing many more flops is because of the bluff potential value that is inherent with just anytime I'm seeing a flop against the right players in the right position. Okay. So let's say I've got 5-6 of diamonds, big blind. A guy opens under the gun whose opening range is just a little bit wide-ish. Okay. And one person calls. When I'm playing my lock solid game where I'm just waiting for it to come to me, this is an automatic fold. Okay. Before the flop. Now, if either of these players is bad at all, okay, and or they are fit and folders, and now I'm playing with a lot of these people enough to know who those are, I'm absolutely calling that flop. And if the board is dry at all, I'm betting 100% of the time. So if the board comes, and this is one of the hands I wrote down because it was just so funny. Board comes 10 deuce deuce. I've talked about this particular play before, but only I always give king 4-4. Board comes 10 deuce deuce rainbow. I bet the under the gun guy folds and the second guy calls, and then I muck before the next card came. Okay? Which kind of blows their mind, and it's like that's the kind of fun shit that happens. So
hold on. Let's just examine that for a second for our audience. I want to make sure people understand what's happening here. So what Tommy's saying is this play, because when it comes 10-2-2, because of just we're in the blind and they've got an open and a call, right? We make a bet, and if they continue, they're continuing with a part of their range that we're not going to win the hand against. And this was a profitable bluff. and
Right.
assuming that they're both going to fold at a certain frequency.
Enough of the time. Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't, it's okay, it didn't work. We don't have to
Right.
like feel bad that we didn't win the hand. We're not trying to win the hand. We were trying to make
Right.
a profitable bluff. And
Right.
it's going to work more than it doesn't. And this time it didn't. And I love that idea.
But,
I mean,
but this guy calling in that situation, he's got a 10 or a deuce.
he's got a 10. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a pocket pair. He could
Yes.
he could be peeling one off. But I don't want to hit a 4 or a 5 and accidentally get roped into something.
Right.
No, but it also has some metagame effect to do crazy shit like
Oh,
that.
I bet it
you know.
does.
So, but the beauty of it is the fearlessness and painlessness that comes when you know you're making a percentage play. You just know it when with nothing, right? So there's no fear, there's no attachment, it's just like whatever.
Yeah, because fearlessness and painlessness don't always go together in people's minds. Like I think there's something often I think people correspond fearlessness to about to feel pain, like a certain percentage of the time.
Yeah.
So I like that there, because it's a confidence in the play is what you're like. That's the fearlessness that it sort of separates you from the pain, because
well, to me they're identical.
Like
Fearlessness and painlessness are like the same thing in a sense. Most of the pain we have is some kind of fear. Does anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, guys, of course, feel free to
stop.
I mean, that's basically what we want. Yes. We do get a comment. Yeah, Rob, jump in.
It's funny when you talk about how when he makes that play, when he makes the call, you automatically know that he has something that you don't want to continue with your hand.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel sometimes when I make that 3-bet bluff pre-flop. Right? There's certain hands that you're going to play, and you feel more comfortable playing some of those than you do some of the premiums that you want to continue with. So for instance, if you have pocket queens and you 3-bet and you get 4-bet, now you're going, oh no.
Right.
Whereas if you have ace jack offsuit and you 3-bet and you get 4-bet, you go, okay, fold.
No problem. Yeah.
No problem. So I know that's exactly what you're saying right there. You're saying that, hey, you make this play and it's a percentage play because most of the time they're going to fold to your 3-bet. But when they don't, it's very easy to throw it away. And
you already know you're going to fold if you get raised, is what makes it easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that.
And if depending on the exact situation, I call that LMIP, last money in the pot. Before the flop isn't as good an example, but let's say, it's on the flop and you flop top and a guy bets or whatever, and you raise some situation, they come up where when you make when you're making a very thin raise or a very thin value bet, this is it. If they raise, I'm out. If they bet the river, I'm out. I'm done. But that's what we're talking about is that is a fear. There's not much fear involved, which makes it easy.
Yeah, because
it also makes it easy to have your mechanics be good. So so another thing I've been doing, and I mentioned this, the other thing is like my continue betting on the turn after I barrel the flop percentage is higher. And I knew after I read what Ed wrote that it had been too low. And now it's like an example I just played this afternoon. I had ace king, a guy made it 30, I made it 90, and got two callers for 90. The cold caller and then the other guy. I know, welcome to California. So so there's like 270 in the pot, and I actually buy in short in this game. I start out, it's maximum 1,000. I start out 300 or 400 and get in some really good short stack situations, and it usually takes about an hour for people to start tilting anyway. So at this moment in the hand, after I bet 90, I had 350 left. So the flop came 8-6-4 rainbow, and I just shoved. Right? It's like if they've got nines, they're going to have to play this hand. And the beauty of it is nobody called this particular time, but if somebody calls, I roll it immediately every time, because it's my turn to show. They go last, aggressor shows, right? And but the part I'm excited to share is the absolute lack of fear or regret about any of it. it's just like, I've been climbing this mountain for a long time, and it's really a good spot to be in, to be playing really, really aggressive out all the time without any fear.
Well, yeah, and when you can see the entire range of your opponent's hands, and like Woody's making a comment here in the chat about like a thin value bet, and how like when you make a thin value bet, part of what you're thinking about is, yeah, they have hands that beat this, and if they're going to raise, I'm going to fold because I'm not worried about a balanced raising position here. I can fold confidently, and feel great about it, because my whole strategy is based around the idea that part of their range is going to call, part of their range is going to fold, and part of the range is going to shove, and being able to predict that and kind of baking that into your play, of course it eliminates the fear and the pain of it, because no matter what they do, now it's just a question of, oh, this is the time they were going to do that. This is the distribution of the range that they were in at that time. Yeah,
exactly. And some percentage of their range they're going to raise, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to fold every time.
Yeah. So what he says, all right, so when we make a thin value bet and we get raised, we should edge towards that fold button. Yeah, usually. I mean, unless unless you've got some crazy tell on them that, but yeah, if you're thinking about it as a thin value bet, when they make that raise, then you're kind of telling yourself already that, yeah, you should be edging towards that fold.
Yeah.
Button. Exactly. Yeah.
Now you guys are 100% tournaments, right?
No, I mean,
as we discussed this, in your mind, you're picturing yourself in tournaments?
I think that's probably true for a lot of our audience, but there are some cash players out here too. So.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a cash game population.
I was thinking in terms of cash games when you were
talking. Because I don't know how much
of
this. I mean, I know the great tournament players are very, very aggressive, and I imagine they're doing a lot of this same stuff I'm talking about all the way through the tournament. Just picking up pots. I don't know.
I think there is that kind of small, like there is that strategic difference a little bit. I think between, in fact, Woody made a comment in here earlier. In tournaments, it seems like there's winning the chips that are in there are kind of like more valuable in a way, because your stack is so important, and that might influence your decisions a little bit. But I'm always interested in that tension between tournament and cash play as well, because I enjoy both. But I'm not sure I could even very authoritatively speak about how you might play one hand differently in one versus the other. So it is very interesting. But now you mostly play cash, is my understanding.
100% live cash for almost 20 years now.
And what I don't want to get too far away from what we're talking about here already, but since we're talking about it, we like to find a few rabbit holes along the way here.
Sure.
So what is it? Is it the deep stacks about cash that make it very different? Is it playing against the same players so that you have a much more intimate knowledge about their playing style? Or as a player of cash, like what are the elements of it that you think make it kind of unique, or that
you can have the same 9 guys sitting there playing for 2 days.
Right.
There's so many differences. It's almost even call it differences undersells how different they are.
Yep.
Man, I can't explain it. It's like you got the guy sitting there with in $1,000 maximum buying game, buying 300 at a time, playing, getting all in once every 8 hands.
Right.
I mean, it's like the profitability of the game, you can just see it, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, the differences that make me prefer cash game strongly are that my 3 advantages are that I can control when I'm playing.
Right.
I can control who I'm playing against, and I can play better than they do. In tournaments, I only have one advantage, if I even have that, right? Yeah. And the other thing is, I find it deeply unsatisfying to make 5 really great plays over the course of 3 hours, a great fold, a great this, and then have my whole day come down to waiting for an ace to shove with 12 bigs. I just can't stand that. It's like I want my bad plays to immediately affect my net worth, and I want my good plays to immediately affect my net worth.
Yeah. Yeah. Rob, did you have something there?
Well, I was just going to say I think he summed it up pretty well, but the main differences are, like he said, you're playing against the same players over and over and over again. And in a tournament, players are coming and going all the time. So by the time you figure a person out, he's leaving, going to another table or getting busted out. Whereas the cash game, you got those guys, so you can, when you can attack them and when they're weak and when they're not weak.
Right,
and
exactly.
And it's so much easier to extract value from them than it is in a tournament. And then the stack size is changing, like you said, waiting for an ace when you got 12 big blinds so you can get it all in.
Yeah.
It's a totally different dynamic at that point. So yeah, stack sizes and the fact that you're playing everybody for hours and hours at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I get frustrated that time sometimes too, Tommy, where I feel like I've been playing great poker for 8 hours and making good decisions, and then one bad beat, one hand where you got the wrong side of a flip, and then like it all kind of seems like it was for nothing. That is a little discouraging, I think, sometimes the tournament player, for sure.
And the thing for me is, like, in every place I've been, if there's a tournament going on, there's a cash game right next door. It's like I'd be in some tournament. I was like, why am I not over there with the 3 worst players in the room instead of playing with these tournament specialists?
Well, we got a couple more questions here from Woody about cash play. And then you should let me know, Tommy, if we want to head into another episode afterwards or to talk a little more hand here. In the meantime, so Woody says, sometimes I see people move seats in a live cash game. Do we know why they do that? Usually it's about either getting close to someone or getting away from someone. Tommy, what's your take on that?
Well, there's many reasons people prefer various seats for various reasons. But if I change seats with the intention of, for the purpose of making more money, it's very specifically to put a really tight telegrapher on my left and another one on the left. The 2 players on the left are the most important to me. And I'm already playing at Oaks often enough. The 1 seat is oftentimes my favorite seat. I can, for a number of reasons. And for whatever reason, tight regulars love the 2 and 3 seat. And it's like the other day we started a game and here it comes, like, I couldn't have scripted any better. They both buy in relatively small. They play super tight. They're right behind me. And so what that means is that on my button and on my cutoff and in the hijack, the 3 most important hands every round, if there's any live players in the game, whoever they are, I'm acting behind them on every street on all 3 of those hands. That's the main reason I want tight, predictable players on the left. Also, I get the button more often. I can be in the cutoff, the action's coming around, I look over, I see this guy telegraphing, he's going to fold on the button. I know I've got the button. A lot of reasons to have tight players on the left. But like you said, a lot of people will change seats to sit behind a loose player. But it's still the same idea. You're trying to gain some kind of a better positional situation.
Yep, that's perfect. Yep. And I think people don't quite appreciate how valuable it is having, as you refer to, a telegraphing player to your left when you're in the cutoff. Because it's like playing 2 buttons a lot of the time. And so that's obviously hugely valuable. Yeah. All right on. Oh, we got one more question from Woody here. Is it true what people say that if you spot a player's tell, you don't tell anything? You don't tell them. Is that a rule? What do you do, Tommy, when you spot someone's tell when they're eating the Oreo? What's the protocol there?
I would never tell them. There are lots of other things I wouldn't say to them either. I mean, generally speaking, I don't think it's good to just volunteer advice at the poker table at any time, because you might piss the person off just as much as help them, But no, I wouldn't. I would definitely not tell Teddy KGB about his Oreo problem.
There you go. I love it. Every time we talk about it, I want to go and rewatch that movie. It is a strong one. It's a strong. Maybe we'll go find some YouTube clips later. Well, thanks, Tommy. I know it's going to be great to. You're enjoying poker, playing more now than you were before. You're playing more often. You're making more money. You're doing it out of position. Sounds like you cracked the code, man. You got it all
It
figured
seems like it right now.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm just running good and I'll be singing a different song next week.
Well, is there another hand you want to talk about tonight, or do you want to save one for
I mean,
another episode? What's your preference?
well, I mean, we kind of, if you want to do another episode now, that's fine.
Yeah, I'd love that. Let's drag
Okay.
Tommy back into the booth for another week, folks. All right. Well, then, without any further ado, I will thank our wonderful sponsors, Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and website AMP, and of course, John, Chris, Rob, Woody, and John. We got 2 Johns tonight. That's exciting. And Tommy Angelo for coming, and to you, the listeners, for being so much fun and for supporting us. Thank you so much.